I'm super happy to welcome the following experts: Elric from Chili Piper, David from Cognizant, and Jared from RevGenius.
And so for me, leading by example is showing them that I'm still a student.
There's probably three main buckets of people. You have the high performers.
One of the key things, probably the most important thing, is natural high achievers.
Let's talk about the essential part of this SDR leadership, team coaching, and mentorship. To drill down on this topic, I'm super happy to welcome the following experts: Elric from Chili Piper, David from Cognizant, and Jared from RevGenius. Welcome, everyone.
Hey, Rev.
Hey, Vlad.
Up.
Hey, everyone. How are you doing?
Not bad. I'm in the UK drinking my tea, being as typical as physically possible for today. But yeah, getting that caffeine hit.
Okay.
I ran out of my tea in back-to-backs today, but excited to be here. Wishing I had tea in my cup at the moment.
I have water for me. So at the end of the day also. So
Yeah,
cheers.
the same here. I noticed I'm out of water actually. So
Awesome. Glad we're all staying hydrated, eh?
yeah. Okay. So thanks for joining us. Let's get started with a quick introduction round because we have just 30 minutes, and I think we want to learn more rather than just talking. So let us know who you are and what's your background, I guess.
Who should kick off, Vlad? Should I kick off?
Yeah, sure.
Do it.
All right, awesome. My name is David Bentham. I'm the Director of Sales Development at Cognizant. My background is I flew to Australia and did a commission-only door-to-door sales job for 3 years, and then moved to Cognizant and kind of haven't really looked back. So we have 75 SDRs here globally now. So pretty good team, pretty big team across the US, UK, and Germany.
I'm Jared. I'm the co-founder of RevGenius. We're a community of sales, marketing, and RevOps professionals. We have about 30,000 of us now or more. My relation to the sales development world, we kicked off Rev League, went to market with SDR Pro, training full teams on sales development. Also helped a bunch of folks get into sales SDR roles. My background, 15 years, full cycle rep and leader. So I had to do it all, y'all, and I'm happy to be here.
Hey everyone, Eric. So right now I'm Enterprise SDR Manager at Chili Piper. So I have 3.5 years as an SDR, outbound SDR, and now almost 2 years as an SDR leader. And right now, I just moved to the enterprise team 4 or 5 months ago. So I was leading the mid-market team, the EMEA mid-market team at Chili Piper, and now leading the enterprise team. And yeah, super happy to be here.
Cool, awesome. So great experiences here. Okay, so let's get started with the very first question, and it will be really, really direct. So should an SDR leader, I don't know, sales leader, lead by example, and how to find a balance here? So what are your ideas here and suggestions, blueprint? Maybe I don't know
who's going to lead by example there.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to kick off. I think there's a short and a long answer. I think the short answer is yes. I think it's super important that you, as a leader, you not only gain the respect and trust of your team, but also that you are in it with them and you understand what's going on in their world. I was super fortunate here that I started off as an SDR, so I did months of being a Cognizant SDR, so I knew it pretty well. But the long answer is, before every SDR here starts jumping on their manager's back and saying they need to be cold calling every day, is the reality of my role, for example, is, do I spend an hour cold calling myself, or do I spend an hour coaching, a team of reps or focusing on strategy? And you're always playing that balance of what for me, I'm playing that balance of how can my time best impact the overall team? And so I tend to do it, but it's a lot more ad hoc. It's a great, for me, it's a great way of like, if we're having a slower month or slower quarter, for me to jump on the phones and just really lead by example then. So yeah, that's the long and the short from my end.
Yeah. So from my end, having a team and being in the trenches, no matter what it is always a positive thing. Now you need to balance that with getting leverage, right? Because like you have a team of however many, you have no leverage if you're not leading them at a certain point and helping them get up. The best managers I've had throughout my career as well would come and join me in client calls. Would come and help me at certain parts and coach certain things, and it was great for me to watch them in action and learn from them in action. But I also knew I was responsible for my own number myself, and that I had somebody to go to leverage. And you can't spread that manager thin, nor can that manager myself be allowed to be spread thin. I think that's important both ways. But yeah, if, on a Friday, like 3 p.m., you want to flex a little bit, like do a cold call hour with your whole team and show them up, of course.
So for me, yes, leading by example, but not the same things. So I'm not doing cold calls. I'm not cold emailing with my team. So for me, I see the role of a leader as a coach. And if you compare to sport, generally as a coach, you are not playing the game. So I'm here practicing with them, training them how to use some stuff on the phone or via email. And so that's the way I'm seeing that. And so for me, leading by example is showing them I'm still a student of the game. So for example, I'm always trying to look for new techniques. For example, with Dave, actually, we talked last week, and always trying to see what other teams are doing, because that's something then I can share with my team. And generally what I'm doing with that is I share that with my top performers, and then my top performers, generally they take the feedback or they want to try new things, and then they use it, it's working, and then the rest of the team start using it. And so for me, it's leading by example in this way. It's more, hey, we are on the same boat, so we are learning, and that's on that also. Also, I'm trying to lead by example, but I'm coaching, but also I'm coachable. So generally when I get feedback from a team, I'm going to show them that I'm going to apply the feedback, because I'm not saying I'm a really good manager, but I think I still stuff to learn. And sometimes I have my team who are giving me feedback. I want to apply this feedback. I show them that I'm listening to them. And if I want to be coachable, I need to be coachable first, I think.
Great suggestions. Being an SDR here at Reply, I would say I'll have probably to confess that I always bounce between two polar opinions. Okay, I should micromanage them. I should check their email, then help them. Then I think no, I shouldn't do that. They should fix problems themselves. Probably just send them great articles, tips on things. So it's really hard, to find a balance there.
Yeah, for sure, really difficult. I was just thinking just then about this one experience that I'd love to share in terms of if there are SDR managers out there that are scared to get back on the phone because they're rusty, right? Because they're not doing it every day and they don't feel like that, they feel like they have to just book in loads of meetings if they get on the phone. One of the most eye-opening experiences I had was when I had a rep that was really struggling, and I offered to get on the phone on their behalf in front of them, and then I spent all day and got nothing. And one thing, and at the end I was gutted. I was like, oh, how is this help that SDR? And he turned around to me and he said, well, look, honestly, this has been amazing, because it shows that it doesn't matter who you are, you're still going to have these days. And he learned more of a message from me not being able to kind of get a positive outcome, but me continuing to follow the right process. So perhaps just a little add on for any because I'm sure we've all been there. Jared, Elric, I'm sure you guys have been there where you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't cold called in a year, and all my SDRs are desperately trying to get me to cold call. That was an important message for me to learn.
I think, building on this, I think it's important that you show that you have your team's back at all times. And that doesn't always mean going to the trenches. Sometimes that means blocking the sun. And what I mean by that is when you have heat coming down from leadership above you saying this person's not hitting their numbers, and they're buying into the process. The heat is looking at spreadsheets. You're seeing the process and what's going to happen. And you're like, no, put it on me. I'm going to protect this person. They don't need to get into this psychological state of like what happens when the manager lets the heat come straight through. That's not fun. And then it's going to, and I'm doing that because they're following the process and other people can't see that. And I have such faith in the process that I'm going to back this person. And then when that turns around, and it will, assuming that you have good processes, oh my gosh, you have somebody that's going to follow you for life and go to battle for you, works cold calling people Saturday at noon. You don't have to do that, but you get the idea.
Elric, maybe you want to add something here or no?
Protecting the SDRs.
Yeah. On protecting the SDRs, I think that's something you need to do because sometimes because you are with them on the trenches, seeing what they're currently doing, and they are doing the right behavior. That's where you need to show leadership that they are doing the right things, and you are here. And obviously, coaching and training people, it's not like sometimes you're going to get results in some weeks or some months sometimes. So be there for them.
Mm-hmm. I see. Great. Thanks. Sounds like each SDR leader has to find a balance on their own, I guess, but definitely help their SDRs. Okay, the next question, very direct. Should SDR leaders focus on high performers or treat all SDRs equally? I'm struggling here as well again.
Yeah, I can start because I changed my mind on this one recently. So a year ago, for me, it was only high performers. And now it's more focused on the people on my team who want to grow and to learn. If someone, for example, I can spend an hour, 2 hours per week with this person, and this person is not applying feedback, I'm not going to spend too much time on this person. I'm going to focus on someone who maybe struggle more than this person, but going to apply my feedback. And I know I can spend 3 hours or 4 hours with this person because this person is really in this growth mindset. And I think the results of doing this is going to pay off. So because before for me, it was only, high performers were only my focus because it's easier to have a high performer to perform, to get 2 or 3 more meetings per month. But now I'm thinking more about, hey, this person on my team wants to learn from us. Yes, okay, I'm going to spend more time with this person.
I love how you said that. I think you could. There's probably 3 buckets or 3 main buckets of people. You have the high performers. You have the people that are tottering a little bit, like they just need a little something, and there's people that might not make it, unfortunately. The middle group, if you spend a lot of time on, you could probably drive the most impact for your team, right? Because if you could there's the best chance of turning those folks into similar to the top performers. This sounds ruthless. I get it, but I'm just trying to bring the numbers up.
No, I totally agree. I think we're all on the same page with this one. I think it's all about who can an hour of my time give the biggest impact to, and that can be a bottom performer or a top performer. I think I agree with Elric exactly. It's about coachability on their side. I mean, at the end of the day, for example, if I bring in 5 new SDRs in a month, I'm going to focus my first week pretty heavily on them because it's going to be so easy to get them from 0 to 5, right? Or 5 meetings in that week, so I'm going to spend my time on those individuals. But there's no kind of right there's no kind of like top or bottom. I certainly won't spend a bunch of time on a high performer who I feel like I've taught everything that I can to, because then, you know, I'm wasting time. So it's all about impact, really.
Got it. So like, we should probably focus on people who like want to be top performers but struggle in some way. I see. Okay, great. We have lots of follow-up questions, so I will quickly go through my questions and then we will go through the questions from the chat. Okay, so my question was how to motivate and challenge SDRs who haven't been achieving quota for a while. Like, what your playbooks here, checklist, best practices.
Sure, happy to say this. So we have triggers in place for what we call the performance improvement plan, which I think is a universally known, you know, corporate way of dealing with people who are in kind of challenging situations. I think a lot of companies, unfortunately, do take performance improvement plans as kind of like a, hey, start doing some work, otherwise you're out of this, you know, you're out of the company, which for us is actually, you know, I think from my experience, we've taken it really seriously and actually genuinely focused it on, okay, can we, like, let's stop for a minute, let's build a plan, and let's make sure that we can get this person back up to speed. And when doing that, we're actually, you know, there's countless times and countless individuals that I won't necessarily name, who have gone up from being kind of our bottom performers who have been really struggling to actually they're now kind of top account executives at the organization. Because I think one thing that challenging state shows is, or the experience that you can get from being in such a challenging spot, is that it can really be your first test of character. And if you come through that, you know, potentially with support from management and the company that you're working for, then the next time you go into that challenging state, I think you can, like, often you know what to do and like what to start thinking about and how to apply yourself in the future. So yeah, we put together performance improvement plans. You know, we look at kind of key area, like usually it's 3 key areas that we want to see improved, and we set smart goals, you know, that are super achievable for them to focus on. And as I say, as long as the focus points are always inputs instead of outputs. So SDRs are mostly quoted on how many meetings that are sat in a month. We're not looking at meetings sat. We're looking at, you know, things like activity, training time. You know, we'll do added call reviews, for example, whatever it might take. And yeah, generally people come out the other side in a very positive state. So that's kind of how we go about that situation.
I think with motivating and challenging anybody, motivation is an internal thing, right? Like, you got to understand if they want to be there. We're in sales. But before this recession, there was always a better offer out there if you were hitting your numbers, right? Like somebody might genuinely just be interviewing like, understand what's going on, like empathize, get deep down and dirty, understand the context. Did they perform before and they're not now? Or have they never performed and they just need an extended ramp? Like, try to look for cues there. And I think, building plans, that's phenomenal. If you have a PIP that's not just for legality, because a PIP will legally protect you from letting somebody go as well. If you have a PIP that's genuinely to help, that's spectacular. But I think it comes down to, you know, the leader being able to empathize and vice versa, like that you're in this together, and you don't necessarily need to cold call on Friday at 3 p.m. like I said to do that, but you do need to have their back so that you could have these conversations to understand where they're at. And 2 people might not be able to be motivated the same way, right? So understand that, be conscious of that, and be curious to learn how, and appease them with that.
For me, it's pretty related to what Jared says. It's about the motivation of the person, because I think for us at Chili Pepper, we work remotely, and I think it's, if we compare to an office setup than to a remote setup. It's a bit harder because we're not in the same room, and I think that the vibe is a bit different, but the motivation is really key for this. And the first thing I want to understand with the team is what motivates them outside of work before talking about why they're struggling and stuff like that. Because if I don't know, for example, what they're working on a personal project, well, it's going to be hard to say, hey, let's focus on, hitting your numbers. But if I know, for example, next year or in 2 years, I want to have a down payment to buy the house, here that's easier for me to say, hey, each month if you go to buy your house, it's 20% of your down payment. Well, let's focus on this. And then I can work with them on a plan. And to what Dave was saying, for generally on the plan, it's KPIs, obviously the results, but also the behavior, because sometimes generally something is missing on the side. So if it's, for example, the coachability piece, I'm going to explain what I'm expecting from them. And it's not, hey, I want you to be coachable. It's not, here for me what's being coachable. Coachable is when I give you feedback, you apply it today or the day tomorrow. Second thing is you ask me for feedback at least once a week, for example. And then the last piece is you take feedback constructively. And that's it. And generally what happens after those conversations, there is change in behavior, and sometimes obviously in the results also, but sometimes it doesn't. So
awesome. Thanks. Like, sounds like we should focus why it happens and what's the motivation behind their performance. Okay, I see. So and questions from the chat. When building a team, what traits, skills are you guys looking for from SDR or current employees?
Yeah, happy to kick off again. I think for me, one of the key things, probably the most important thing, is natural high achievers. And so when I say natural, we mostly hire recent graduates, won't necessarily have a ton of working experience to go off of. But what I'm really looking for is, like, in the past, you've kind of pushed yourself not just to an average level of competence at something, but kind of kept pushing yourself further and further to quite a high level. So, that could be you being the world's best player at Tiddlywinks, or I don't know, like a world chess master. It really does not matter, but that's a very difficult trait to teach, I think, to have that person that has that competitive nature and wants to keep driving forward. So that's amongst a bunch of other things, that's something that really stands out to me as important.
Hey, you're on mute.
Excuse me.
I'll be real early stage. We need a self-starter that could figure this shit out themselves. Like, no one will really say that. Sure, hire that person that's really great with the playbook in the beginning, and then come back and tell me that, like, why you have to hire again. Like, people that are curious, they work fast, they could figure things out fast, move fast, and are coachable. And don't necessarily need an SOP for everything, is essential early stage, right? Like, as you have more resources to build enablement and stuff, it becomes different, of course.
Yeah, similar for me. So coachability and being curious, that's on my list. And then, like you mentioned, Jared, for me, it's more being adaptable, for example, because right now, the team I'm working with, it's a pretty small team. For us, the enterprise team is the smallest team on the org. And right now, we don't have the playbook. And here, we need to create everything. And I need someone on my team right now that can do the job without having, like, clear indication. And so right now on my team, for example, I'm not going to hire people who are new to the SDR job. I'm going to hire people who already done the job, or that can show me that they can adapt or create processes.
Yeah, and that's critical. Like, I once came onto a company where I was doing everything in the beginning, and before the company was just kind of moving around in circles, and I'm like, you guys don't want revenue, and so just someone that could push in and just start making it happen is big.
I think when we were in it, and maybe you guys can resonate with this, one of the things that we looked for in the early days was just pure optimists, because we knew that, especially in that startup culture, there was going to be moments where things were not working out and there were big blips, and you need those people that are just kind of, ever optimistic that the end goal is going to come. And that really, really helped us, for anybody out there in kind of like your 10-person, 30 to 50 people company, I suppose, even smaller, having a bunch of salespeople that just, because, especially when the product's not in a place where the product's really just an MVP and everybody's actually just complaining that it's not as good, having that type of salesperson, I think, is incredibly important. Just to add on to what you guys are saying.
Yeah, they literally write books where they tell you should get rid of the Z. Like, to be clear, like if you have anybody that's a Z, which means like a non-starter, a pessimist.
Sounds like we have here different playbooks. Hire people who can
Optimists are big.
Get shit done. Optimists. Yep, optimists. People with, I would say, genuine curiosity, and who can have things done. Okay, so Emil asks, what key SDR performers do you guys focus on? What would you suggest here, other SDR leaders? What should we focus on? Like, I guess it's KPIs, right?
Yeah, so we've done something quite interesting at Cognizant, which, like, for any SDR leaders, I think this has been such a game changer. I actually stole this completely off of Caitlin Kelly, who at the time was working for Outreach. So if anybody knows Caitlin Kelly, we do this thing. We've called it the Cognizant 17. It's basically 17 attributes that we're every month the SDRs like self focus on. And the reason I bring it up is because I don't want this to, I think this answer could be really obvious. You could say, okay, meetings booked, meetings attended, opportunities created, pipeline, dollar, like sourced revenue, right? That could be your drivers. But for us, we include those in the 17, but we're also including things like how many books you've read on sales in the past month, or podcasts, or like, what literature you've read, or focusing on kind of, we call it the zero board, which is basically a dashboard that we have where you should have zero reports in there, because it essentially highlights issues with your admin. So if there's obviously like a tolerance, people make mistakes, but essentially, like, we're looking at kind of like, how well you filled in your reporting and things like that. So it really can be, there's so many different things that SDRs really need to be thinking about. But also as a business, we're, the landscape for us is changing. And so, for example, like, if we're adding a new feature to the product that is great for, say, recruiters, we might add into our 17 something specific to recruiters and like understanding the recruitment use case. So I really, I think for any SDR managers out there, there's a bunch of different things that you want to be thinking about. Definitely stuff past just your average kind of outcome metrics.
The most organized, and I'm not on mute, the most organized performance plan that I ever had was because I've been early stage the last 10 years. So it hasn't been baked out as much as some others, admittedly. But early stage, like 50% of the plan was on soft KPIs. Activity was one of them, but not just, raw activity per se. It was also like, how many proposals have you drummed up, or like, figure out like an activity that associates with the funnel. And then like other stuff that, like, if you weren't hitting your overall attainment and your monthly attainment goals, you had like a system of checks and balances that would get there. But what key SDR performance drivers do you focus? I'm not the best person to answer this today.
So for me, and I'm thinking about that right now because that's something I'm thinking about for next year, how we can drive more quality, for example, because for us right now it's driving meetings, so it's not really focused on the quality. So conversations will be one. So is it on the phone or via email? Because I prefer to send maybe 10 emails and then you get 3 replies than sending 100 or 200 emails and get the same amounts, the same results. So that will be one. And then I really like what you said, Dave, because that's not something I think about the having metrics not related to the activity or the result, but more focused on the skill development. And I think that could be interesting to figure out that, because you can track that they're also trying to learn also on their own, and you can track that. So there's that. And right now, so we're calling that standards of the team, and that's something we're going to track. It's on skills also that we're going to track. So it's based on, obviously you have performance and KPIs, but then you have also the coachability piece on a scale 1 to 5. How are you ranking? Here it's not something we can track on Salesforce or on other dashboards, but it's every month we have like on our monthly one-on-one, the first one-on-one of the month, we're going to talk about this, and we're going to track month over month to see if they are improving on specific skills.
Okay, great. Thanks for your answers. Okay, so we unfortunately run out of time. I guess we need to, like, next time have these masterclasses longer, this panel discussion longer. So thanks for your time, everyone, and I don't know, see you in the future.
Thanks so much. Cheers, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you.
It's been
Bye-bye.
fun.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye.